Spring training games get underway this weekend for the Atlanta Braves. And before they do, I want to tell you on today's episode who I think will be on the Atlanta Braves opening day roster. That on today's episode of Locked On Braves. So let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, and welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I'm your host, Jake Mastriani, and thank you so much for joining us here today. Make sure you follow us on social media at Shortstop Ball. Check out the podcast there at LockedOn_Braves. Check us out on Instagram at Locked On Braves. Subscribe to us on YouTube if you're new. Hit that thumbs up button. Leave me a comment down below. If you're listening on the audio version, you can help out by leaving me a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. Thank you so much for making Locked On Braves your first listen of each and every day. And I truly appreciate the support. We are almost there. This weekend, we are going to have actual baseball to talk about. Looking forward to that as we get ready for the 2025 season. Put 2024 and this pretty boring offseason behind us. But before we get into the games that start this weekend, I wanted to go ahead and give my official opening day roster predictions. I think it's going to be pretty chalky. There's not a lot open, maybe 5 to 6 spots at most that are open for the Atlanta Braves in spring training. But I want to at least go ahead and put down on paper or audio version who I think is going to be on the opening day roster. Hopefully you agree with me, but if you don't, it'll make for some great discussion in the comment section down below. Now, the reason I want to go ahead and do this today is because on Thursday, going to have Grant McCauley joining the podcast. We'll have a pre-recorded episode that I'll release on Thursday night, and then I'll be back with you on a Friday afternoon for our weekly mailbag podcast, and that'll be it before games get underway this Saturday. Chris Sale starting the Grapefruit League opener for the Atlanta Braves this weekend. We'll get back with all the action on that on a Monday's episode of Locked On Braves. So, without further ado, here are my opening day roster predictions, who I think will go to San Diego to begin the season for the Atlanta Braves. At catcher, pretty clearly, Sean Murphy is going to be the starter. I think Sean Murphy is going to get a big workload this year. I hope Sean Murphy gets a big workload because, 1, I think that means he's healthy. 2, that means he's productive. And 3, I'm just really rooting for the guy. And I think he can be very good. That's not to say I'm not excited about Drake Baldwin and his potential future, but I'm just a believer in Sean Murphy. Maybe he's not the first half 2023 guy, but I think if he can play 2/3 of the time, which again, I think is a benefit for him to do that, then I think he can hit 20 home runs. I think he can hit 250, get on base 33, 34% of the time, and I think he can be a Gold Glove catcher behind the plate. And so I think Sean Murphy is going to get a good chance this year to really show what he can be if he stays healthy. You can say that about anybody. I'm going to try to not say it for every player going forward forever, because you can say that about anybody. I know we're all coming off a season where we were really just hurt and devastated by injuries, but it's sports. It happens. It's the unfortunate part of sports. Everybody can get injured, but I do think the potential there is there for Sean Murphy to be one of the best catchers in all of baseball again. Now, backing him up is going to be Chadwick Tromp, and I'm excited about Chadwick Tromp. You go back to last offseason where there was a potential for the Braves losing him. I came on the episode and told you that I was so excited that the Braves were able to keep him, bring him back, because he's been really good. Well, the few times that he's had to come up and fill in, he seems like he's delivered. And the guys like throwing to him. Seems like a great guy in the clubhouse. He raked at AAA last year. I don't know how sustainable that would be for him at the big league level, but I like Chadwick Tromp as a backup catcher. So you got 2 really solid catchers to begin the year in Sean Murphy and Chadwick Tromp. Again, with Murphy likely going to get the bulk of those starts. And then the depth in all of these positions that I'm going to go through, I'm going to give you who I think the depth pieces are so we can get a better picture of what the depth at each position is as well. The depth at catcher is Drake Baldwin, one of the top prospects in all of baseball. So I said this a couple of weeks ago on the podcast. I think the one position that I feel best about is actually catcher, because I am high on Sean Murphy. I think Chadwick Tromp is a really solid backup and could fill in for a time if Sean Murphy needed a brief IL stint. But if it's a longer period, you got, again, one of the best prospects in baseball and a big bat. And from what it sounds like, at least in spring training, pitchers like throwing to him, believe he can stay behind the plate. you got a really good catcher waiting in the wings. So I think catcher position is one of the best for the Atlanta Braves right now, where I feel the most confident for them going into the season. But on the opening day roster, Sean Murphy, Chadwick Tromp, I don't think Drake Baldwin's going to earn his way onto the opening day roster, even if he goes off in spring training. I think they're going to wait until they see more of an opening for him to get everyday at-bats at the big league level. Moving over to first base, Matt Olson is going to be your starter at first base. You look at depth beyond him. With Jerickson Profar, he can play first base in a pinch if needed. He could move over there, so you have some solid depth there. And Garrett Cooper, who's in camp on a minor league signing, non-roster invitee, that gives you some good depth as well as somebody that has plenty of major league experience at the first base position. So I honestly feel pretty good about the depth at first base. But Matt Olson is going to be the opening day starter at first base for the Atlanta Braves. At second base, Ozzie Albies. I think Nacho would be next up if something serious happened with Ozzie, and unfortunately, he tends to have serious things happen to him every now and then. Profar could probably handle it if needed, but then you're looking at Nick Allen, Eli White, Luke Williams as options, so some solid depth there as well. I certainly don't think that's the worst that we're going to talk about here, but Ozzie Albies, your opening day second baseman. At shortstop, to the chagrin of many of you, it's going to be Orlando Arcia as the Atlanta Braves starting shortstop on opening day. The depth behind him, though, Nick Allen, Nacho Alvarez, those are the backup candidates. Allen, I think, would fill in if it were a short-term, injury list or injury stint for Orlando Arcia. If it more long-term, could be Nacho. And we could see him get a chance and get an opportunity this year. That might be one of the surprises of this season if Nacho does take over the shortstop position. Look, it's not out of the realm of possibility. I'm not expecting it, but it could happen. And it might not even take an injury from Arcia for that to happen. But Orlando Arcia will be your starting shortstop on opening day. At third base, Austin Riley. And I thought about this one for a minute, and originally I wasn't sure who the backup was for Austin Riley, but last year the Braves put Nacho over at third base towards the end of the season, giving him a look there in case the Braves were going to use him there, but Gio Urshela played well down the stretch. They didn't need to. But Nacho is likely the backup at third base because beyond him, it's, we'll see if Eli White gets some reps there in spring training maybe. You got Christian Cairo as a Rule 5 pick. If he sticks around, Jose Devers. It feels like this is the position for me that I think there's potentially the biggest drop-off. I mean, you're going from Austin Riley, a guy that I talked about yesterday, I think will be the team's MVP this year. But if something were to happen to Austin Riley, there's just not anything internally that the Braves have that I think can come close to giving you what Austin Riley can give you. I mean, if Orlando gets hurt, I think Nacho could potentially give you similar, if not better value than what Arcia gives you. If Ozzie gets hurt, yeah, there's gonna be a big power drop off to either Nacho or Nick Allen. But I think that's a smaller gap. But at third base, whoever it is going to be behind Austin Riley, it's going to be a big drop-off. But going around the infield, Sean Murphy, Chadwick Tromp at catcher, Matt Olson at first base, Ozzie at second, Orlando at shortstop, and Riley at third base. And then on opening day, remember, Jerickson Profar in left field, Michael Harris in center field, Jared Kelenic in right field. Pretty good chance the Padres are going to throw a righty on opening day, so you're going to see Jared Kelenic get an opening day start for the Atlanta Braves. But those are your outfielders on opening day for the Atlanta Braves. Your outfield backups are obviously Brian De La Cruz, who's most likely going to be in some sort of platoon situation with Jared Kelenic to begin the year. Acuna coming back soon. Then you have Luke Williams. You have an Eli White, a Jake Marisnik, a Carlos Rodriguez, and a Connor Capel. That is your depth at outfield. At DH, it's going to be Marcell Ozuna. Again, I already said I'm not going to try not to say it, but if healthy, Ozuna is going to be in there 160 times a year. There's not going to be a lot of opportunities for others to get a chance in that DH spot. So Marcell Ozuna will be your DH. And then the final three bench spots. And these are the spots that are kind of up for grabs. One of them, is, like I said, is pretty much already taken with Brian De La Cruz and Chadwick Tromp. Those are two of your bench spots. So there's really two spots up for grabs in spring training. And I'm going kind of chalk here because this seems to be what most people are thinking. And I've said this for a while. I think Nick Allen gets one of those jobs. you can make a case for Christian Cairo because he is a Rule 5 pick, and the Braves would have to offer him back if he's not on the roster. But I just think Nick Allen, because of his defensive ability, is of more value. I honestly don't know a lot about Cairo myself, but Nick Allen, I think, has a leg up on one of those bench jobs. And he already homered off Chris Sale, so he's got a big advantage already in spring training. And then I think the final spot, it's likely between Eli White and Luke Williams, maybe Cairo. He can play some outfield, but I think it's Eli White. I think the last spot is to Eli White. They're going to try to transition him to the infield to open up his versatility in spring training. Very curious to see where all they put him. We know they tried him at some second base last year. Do they also try him out at third base? But I think the biggest reason outside of the versatility for Eli White and be able to back up multiple positions is just that he is really fast. And Luke Williams is too, and you could certainly use him in that capacity. But that final bench spot for me, Nick Allen is there in case something happens to an infielder in the game. Nick Allen can step in and hold it down defensively until Nacho or you go get somebody else. Eli White, Luke Williams, whoever it's going to be, those are my pinch runners. Those are the guys that are coming in to pinch run for Sean Murphy late in the game, maybe even Orlando Arcia late in the game, because you have Nick Allen you could put in shortstop after that. Arcia's got to get on base first. Sorry, that was a low blow. But I do think it's Eli White that gets that final bench spot. So Brian De La Cruz, Nick Allen, Eli White, Chadwick Tromp, those are my bench players, and those are my hitters. 13 hitters for the Atlanta Braves on opening day. Let me know what you think. You agree with those picks? You think somebody else gets that final bench spot? Let me know in the comments section down below. Next, we'll get to the pitching side of things. We'll look at the 5 starting pitchers for the Atlanta Braves on opening day, as well as the 8 relievers. We'll get into that here next. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1-ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber, better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Personally, I love the no shells variety. It's the perfect grab and go snack for busy days, whether I'm snacking at my desk, on a road trip, taking the kids to school, whatever the case may be. I can just grab and go. But if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are on sale as a classic favorite for you as well. Wonderful Pistachios is a complete protein, providing all 9 essential amino acids. Whether you're running between meetings or dropping off the kids, Wonderful Pistachios are the snack that works as hard as you do. Get snackin' and crackin' with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Thank you again for making Locked On Braves your first listen of each and every day. Go check out Locked On MLB for your second listen, solely getting you caught up with everything happening around Major League Baseball. As I mentioned earlier, here on Locked On Braves, got an interview coming up tomorrow with Grant McCauley, and then our mailbag episode on Friday. Then we'll be back on Monday talking about actual games that happen in spring training. And obviously, we'll get into our Minors Monday spotlight as well. But let's continue through with our opening day roster predictions. We talked about our 13 hitters. Now let's look at our 13 pitchers. And I'm also going pretty chalk on the starting rotation. No surprises here. Chris Sale, I think, is going to be your opening day starter, followed by Spencer Schwellenbach, followed by Renato Lopez, followed by Grant Holmes, and followed by Ian Anderson. You've already heard a lot of buzz. And we have to remember as fans, it's that time of year. Everybody's in the best shape. Everybody looks good against hitters that haven't hit all winter. We're getting a lot of positive buzz right now on pitchers. But there is a lot of optimism, it feels like, for both Grant Holmes and Ian Anderson. What really gives them the leg up is that they're out of options. And I don't think the Braves just want to give up on those guys. So Grant Holmes, Ian Anderson, Alex Gonzalez has stated it many times that because he's even said because those guys are out of options, they got a good chance to make the opening day roster. Now they have to go out in spring training and prove it and perform. We'll talk a little bit more about Ian Anderson's live batting practice session that he had on Wednesday a little bit later in the podcast. But I do think those are your 5 starters to begin the year: Sale, Schwellenbach, Lopez, Holmes, and Anderson. And then the depth behind them, obviously Spencer Strider coming back, I think, within the first 2 to 3 weeks of the season. We'll know more, obviously, as spring training goes on. If he's able to make a start or 2 in spring training, will obviously determine how quickly he can come back. But even if he makes one start at the end of spring training, goes 2 innings, makes another start at Gwinnett a week after that and gets up to 4 innings and another one after that, you're still looking, I think, at third week of the regular season that you could see Spencer Strider ready to go. But after Strider, AJ Smith-Shawver, if Anderson or Holmes were to slip up in spring training, or if another starter was to get hurt, I think AJ Smith-Shawver is the next man. You got Bryce Elder. Don't forget about him. He's still here. He still has a lot of experience at the major league level. He's still a former all-star pitcher. So I think he would be next in line. And then it gets a little dicey. And I guess you could say maybe it gets a little bit dicey after AJ Smith-Shawver. But, then you got Elder. Then maybe you got a Dylan Dodd, a Davis Daniel, a Chad Kuhl maybe. I put Hurston Waldrop down the list. I just feel like he just needs more time. And it's unfortunate to say that in some regards because he is a college guy. You're hoping you can fast track him a little bit. But you got to remember when the Braves drafted him, they drafted him on pure upside, but there was still a lot that needed to be worked out. And the Braves did fast track him. And maybe that was to his detriment a little bit. But there's still just too much that I need to see Hurston Waldrop work on, improve on before I'm ready to give him another chance at the big league level. Do I think he could come up and pitch better than a Bryce Elder, a Dylan Dodd, or a Davis Daniel? Maybe, but I just don't trust it enough right now. And I need to see him go to AAA, work on those things before he gets another opportunity. But again, just to run through the depth again, Strider coming back soon, AJ Smith-Shawver, Elder, Dylan Dodd, Davis Daniel, Chad Kuhl, Hurston Waldrop, and then maybe down the line in the season, a Drew Hackenberg, a Lucas Braun, a Blake Burkhalter, I think are guys that are going to be looking for an opportunity at some point this year. So those are your starters. Again, on opening day, Sale, Schwellenbach, Lopez, Holmes, and Anderson, I think will be your 5 guys in the rotation. As for the bullpen, Raisel Iglesias at closer, Pierce Johnson and Dylan Lee as your top setup guys. Aaron Bummer in there also could be a setup guy from the left side and just lefty specialist, but also a ground ball specialist late in game. Kind of deploy him when you need him. And then Daysbel Hernandez, I think is going to be that next guy up in kind of that core 5 that the Braves have in the bullpen. And then I think Angel Perdomo and Anderson PR are pretty safe bets to be in the opening day bullpen. Perdomo's out of options from the left side. PR's a Rule 5 guy, so the Braves either have to keep him or give him back. He was really good last year, and he can go multiple innings and be that long reliever. So I think both of those guys have a good chance to make the opening day roster as well. And then it really comes down to the last spot in the Braves bullpen, which they could do a number of things with. They could put a Dylan Dodd or a Davis Daniel in that spot to give you somebody with more length in the bullpen, somebody that can give you multiple innings, or they can just say, that's a Dylan Lee who can go multiple innings for you, or an inning plus. That's an Anderson PR, and they already have enough of that. And if that's the case, and they just want to go with, a 1 inning traditional type of reliever, I think Buck Farmer, the guy they just signed, is the leading candidate to get that last bullpen spot. So that's who I have is on the Braves opening day. In the Braves opening day bullpen, I have Iglesias, Johnson, Lee, Bummer, Daysbel Hernandez, Perdomo, PR, and Farmer. Those are my 8 relievers for the Braves on opening day. But we'll see, again, if the Braves decided they want to have somebody in the bullpen with more length to begin the year, then I wouldn't be surprised if we see a Dylan Dodd, a Davis Daniel, maybe even a Bryce Elder or a Chad Kuhl in that final spot. But I'm going to go with Buck Farmer to get that final bullpen spot. The depth after him, I think Jordan Weems, I think it'll be between Weems and Farmer for that last spot. I would have had Weems here before the Buck Farmer signing, but Weems is next guy up for me. Domingo Gonzalez, Chasen Shreve, Enyel De Los Santos, and Wander Suero are some of your more depth pieces in the bullpen. Plus, don't forget, when Strider comes back, it's likely that either Grant Holmes or Ian Anderson slides into the bullpen as well and gives you some depth there. So I know we're all a little worried about the bullpen, and I still am, but there is a lot of, I think, good depth here, but certainly some unknowns. What does Perdomo look like? Can Daysbel get the control issues under control to be effective enough reliever? Can Pilar replicate what he did at the minor league level last year at the big league level that he hasn't done before? Can Buck Farmer kind of replicate what he's done, really the last 3 years and just be a solid reliever? And can any of these other guys who have been good in the past, like a Weems, a Shreve, a Suero, can those guys step up and give you some depth as well. So again, I think there are some arms there in the bullpen, past the top 4 or 5, but they are certainly question marks and some unknowns. But I can see the upside for those guys and the still being a really good bullpen. So those are my opening day roster predictions for hitters, for pitchers. Let me know in the comments section down below what you think, who you think is going to make the opening day roster. T Studio says Buck is going to make the opening day roster. He's really good, in my opinion. I agree with that. I think he's been really solid last 2 or 3 years, and he's done it in a very hitter-friendly ballpark in Cincinnati. So you got to think coming to Atlanta, which, it's kind of middle of the pack in terms of offensive environment, but certainly better than Cincinnati, might help him a little bit as well. So I do think he gets that last bullpen spot. But again, let me know what you think down in the comment section below. All right, next we'll get into some news of the day, including Ian Anderson's second live batting practice session. We'll talk about that, and also where another place that you can watch the Atlanta Braves on TV this year for streaming viewers out there. We'll get into that here next. In sports, having a winning strategy is everything. It's how the best teams make it to the Super Bowl, the World Series, and the Olympics. The same goes for life. Having a strategy like life insurance from SelectQuote can protect your financial legacy and keep your family's future secure. SelectQuote makes it easy to find the perfect life insurance policy. As one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience, they've helped over 2 million customers find $700 billion in coverage since 1985. What sets SelectQuote apart is their personal touch. Unlike other brokers that offer one-size-fits-all policies, their licensed agents tailor coverage to fit your unique needs. If you're in good health, you might even qualify for same-day coverage of up to $5 million. No medical exam required. And it's more affordable than you'd think. You can get up to $1 million in coverage for as little as $20 a month. Get the right life insurance for you for less at SelectQuote.com/lockedon. Go to SelectQuote.com/lockedon today to get started. One more time, that's SelectQuote.com/lockedon. SelectQuote. They shop, you save. So Ian Anderson threw his second live batting practice session on Wednesday, and everything went well. Sounds like from those who were in attendance. Mark Bowman of MLB.com said that he was sitting 92-93 with his four-seam fastball, and that's about where he was last year at AAA, but it is down a mile per hour from where he was before the injury. Now, obviously, it's early in spring training, working his way back. So we'll see if that fastball can tick back up and get more into that 94 mile per hour range. And that's really kind of the average. I mean, you're really hoping that Ian Anderson has the ability to get some 96s, 97s in there as well. But, average 94 on that fastball, which is still an important pitch for him. We talk a lot about the changeup and how good it is and developing that slider. But still, the fastball, and more so the fastball location, even more than the velocity, I think is very key for Ian Anderson. But good to see him getting worked up. Like I said earlier, there seems to be a lot of positive talk about Ian Anderson, getting snubbed for a postseason start last year, which, you could make the question. We talked about it a lot already this week. I think the way A.J. Smith-Shawver was throwing the ball at the end of the year, he certainly earned that start in the postseason. But we talked about it a lot at that time. Ian Anderson, the numbers looked pretty good at the end of last year. It was just the walks. Still walking a lot of batters, and I don't think the Braves wanted to go with that in the postseason, even though we've seen him be very successful in the postseason, even with those walks and with the lack of control. So I'm not here to debate what would have been better at this point. It's, bygones be bygones, and I don't think the Braves were going to win that series anyway, but I probably would have picked Ian Anderson at that time. But either way, that is gone. And we are now moving towards 2025. And again, a lot of optimism for Ian Anderson. A lot of excitement as well for the Braves viewing options, at least for those who are streaming like myself. We've talked a lot or we've talked about it already, that the FanDuel Sports Network has offered an app-only subscription for Braves, and I think Hawks games as well, that you can watch Braves games strictly through the FanDuel Sports Network app for $20 a month. Well, now that is available through Amazon Prime. And it's essentially the same thing as getting the subscription through the FanDuel Sports Network app, but I'm assuming you get to use it through the Amazon Prime app, which might be more user-friendly. I've never personally used the FanDuel Sports Network app, formerly the Bally app. I've heard nothing but awful things about it. So I'm hoping that using Amazon Prime or using it through Amazon Prime is a bit of an upgrade. I am very familiar with Prime Video's app and how that works, but I haven't used any of the add-on apps inside Prime. So I don't necessarily know what that's going to look like. And, again, it's the same thing. You can either just buy it for the FanDuel Sports Network app or you buy it through Amazon Prime. It's $20 a month either way. But I'm hopeful that kind of the user interface experience is going to be much better through Prime Video. So that is an option for you as well. And again, this is for in market. So if you are in the Atlanta Braves market, you will have the ability to purchase these apps and watch them in market. If you're out of market, you're still most likely going to want to go through MLB TV or whatever you were using before to watch Braves games. But, if you're like me and you don't really watch a lot of live TV outside of Braves baseball, so you don't need that YouTube TV subscription or Fubo TV. YouTube, you can't get Braves anyway, but Fubo TV, which is what I used last year, or DirecTV Stream or DirecTV Satellite, whatever the case it is, if you don't really need that because you're only trying to get Braves games, you could cancel that subscription and just get this app for $20 a month, save you $70-$80 a month doing that. So I think that's a pretty solid option to go if you want to. I will probably try it out at the beginning of the year as well to see how it goes. I used Fubo TV last year. It is quite expensive. I think it's like $100 a month when you got to do the add-on purchase for the regional sports networks. So it is pretty expensive, but it worked well. The biggest thing for me, I am usually catching up on games a lot because I'm usually either having to pause it or start the game later because putting kids to bed, doing all of that. So I am really interested to see in the Prime app or the FanDuel Sports Network app, what does the live playback feature look like? Can I go into a game that's already started and start it from the beginning? Can I pause it? What does the fast forward rewind features look like? That's going to be what's probably most important to me into which way I go about it. But it is more options. And I love that, especially for in-market people who, if you're like me and you're in the Atlanta network, you subscribe to MLB TV, you can't get it, but you don't want to have a Fubo TV or a DirecTV Stream subscription. Now you can just spend $20 more a month and you can get the Braves games in network or in the market area there. So I think that's going to be a good thing for Braves fans. This isn't really big news, but with robo-umps likely coming, I think we're going to get a challenge system very soon, probably next year, if I had to guess. It could also eliminate the strike zone on TV. This is just a little bit soapboxy for me. I cannot stand the boxes on the TV and the broadcast showing the strike zone because, one, I think they're misleading. I think they can be very misleading. I think it leads to more fan frustration than anything. You can generally tell without the box on the screen. That's why I've loved watching a lot of these college games here recently because almost none of them have the box on the screen. You can tell if a pitch is in the zone or not. It's just, I don't need it. If it's a close pitch, show me the box on a replay to see how close it was to the strike zone. I just think it's distracting on the screen. I don't like it. So I hope if we do get robo-umps that the strike zone on the TV does go away, but that's just a personal thing for me. Not a lot of news happening around Major League Baseball. Scott Alexander got $2 million from the Rockies. Astros signed former top prospect and number 3 overall draft pick, Brendan Rodgers, to a minor league deal, but not much else happening, at least last time I looked, but it is the offseason. Make sure you're checking before. Lawrence Butler and the A's are indeed in talks regarding an extension per source. Unclear, however, how far along these conversations are or how soon a deal could come together. That from several sources, Evan Drellich, Mark Feinsand, and others talking about that. So I know a lot of you have hoped that the Braves might trade for a Lawrence Butler from the A's, but looks like the A's might actually be doing a good thing and locking up some of their young talent. So that would be pretty cool for them. Not pretty cool for Braves fans that were hoping to get him. But that's all the news of the day. Thank you so much for joining me here today, Doc's Cards. I'd love to see a broadcast with no graphics, commentary, or anything but the sounds of the game. That's what radio is for there, Doc. And I love listening to baseball on radio, but I get it as well. You want to get just the visuals and the sounds. That would be pretty cool too. Spidey Matt, enjoy listening to the podcast every day. Jake, fingers crossed for incredible years from our corner infielders this season, pulling hard for health and big numbers from Matty O and Riley. I'm right there with you. I think they're going to have some big seasons. Looking forward to those guys. Matt Olson doing the every other year thing. Well, it is that other year. It's time for him to put up those big numbers. And as I said yesterday, I think Austin Riley's going to have a massive season, MVP type of season. Doc, I saw where you said you got tickets to opening day, so that's cool as well out there on the West Coast. That gives you a little bit of an advantage, but good job locking up those opening day tickets. I'm actually going to be at the beach again. It's 2 years in a row. I got to have a conversation with my wife. I don't know how this keeps happening, but we keep planning family vacations on opening day weekend. So I'll actually be at the beach again on opening day, but I actually really enjoyed it last year. It's pretty cool sitting on the beach, watching baseball. Doesn't get much better than that. So I will not be there. We'll be at the home opener though, as I generally am. So looking forward to that. But thank you all for joining. Jeffrey Humphrey's in here as well. Our Guinness, appreciate you. Duvall 287. What's the rotation going to look like besides Sell? Well, rewind the podcast a little bit and you will see my opening day predictions. Doug Counts. Hope Ian can get that velo around 94, 95 average and work the different eye levels. Yeah, for me, it's not as so much about the velocity. That would be nice, but it is more so about the command of that fastball for Ian Anderson. Kristen, I'll see you at the home opener again. That's where we generally meet up. We'll see if we sit in the same section once again. Brian Willits. Hey, Jake. Happy I found you live. Glad you were able to make it. Brian, Waylon Mercy. You the man, Jake. Well, I thank you. Thank you for that, Waylon. Appreciate you joining on today's live episode of Locked On Braves. Thank you all of you watching the replay as well. Thank you for all the support that you give me here at Locked On Braves. Hit that subscribe button, thumbs up button. Leave me a comment down below. Follow us on social media at LockedOn_Braves on X and Locked On Braves on Instagram. Follow me at Shortstop Ball. Make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcast. And we will talk to you next time.